welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a pretty big question. Was Ada Lovelace really the first computer programmer?
Wow.
We've got a lot to go through. Her Wikipedia articles just about her contributions to computing, even something from NIST.
NIST. That's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. What do they have to say about Ada Lovelace?
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
It all ties back to her connection to the Analytical engine and Charles Babbage.
Ah, Babbage. Father of computers and all that.
Right. But first, let's talk about Ada herself. I mean, she was Lord Byron's daughter. Talk about a legacy.
Yeah, wild family history.
Okay, so she's born in 1815. Not exactly a time when you saw a lot of women in science.
Not at all. It's incredible to think about the context she was working in.
Right. So her mom, Lady Byron, was a mathematician.
Okay.
But she was worried Ada would inherit her father's temperament. You know, the whole mad, bad, and dangerous to know thing.
I see. So she steered her toward math and science, thinking that would keep her grounded.
Almost like she accidentally launched her right into a field that would eventually be full of, well, you know, those kinds of personalities.
Yeah. Ironic, isn't it?
But Ada was always curious. Like when she was 12, she designed a flying machine.
A flying machine at 12.
She was documenting everything. Materials, wing structures. She wanted to build this thing. Of course, it never actually flew.
Well, that's still impressive.
Shows you how her mind worked, though. Not content just to read about it. She wanted to build it, to make it real.
That's pretty cool. A real hands-on approach. I guess you could say she had the engineering bug early on.
Exactly. But life wasn't easy for her. She dealt with some serious health problems, chronic headaches, even paralysis sometimes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Makes you think about all she achieved with that going on.
Definitely adds another layer to her story.
So then, at 17, she meets this guy, Charles Babbage.
Babbage. It's a big moment. The father of computers, as they say.
And he's working on his difference engine, this crazy mechanical calculator.
I bet that must have been mind-blowing for her.
Oh, absolutely. And Babbage saw how smart she was. Like, he realized she could get it, understand these inventions.
More than just understand. He saw she could explain them, make them clear for others.
Yeah, they started this long friendship, writing letters, discussing math, all sorts of ideas back and forth.
Wow. Two brilliant minds connecting like that. It's pretty special when you think about it.
Totally. But then Babbage comes up with the analytical engine.
Right, the next step, the more general-purpose computer.
And this is where Ada's contributions become even more important.
Because Babbage, he was the inventor, the builder, the one with these grand ideas.
But Ada, she could see beyond that.
Exactly. She understood the potential in a way a lot of people didn't.
She gets asked to translate an article about the analytical engine, and she does way more than just translate.
Yeah, her notes are famous for a reason. They were like 3 times longer than the original article, packed with her own insights.
And in those notes, that's where she outlines the algorithm for the engine to calculate Bernoulli numbers. That's what people point to as the first computer program.
Bernoulli numbers. That's getting into some serious math, isn't it?
Well, yeah. But the bigger point is, her algorithm, it wasn't just about the numbers themselves.
Right. It was about how to manipulate information in a more general way.
Like the foundation for software, for programming languages.
Exactly. A huge leap forward. It's a difference between a calculator and a computer that can, I don't know, compose music or create art.
And that's exactly what she was thinking about. She saw computers going way beyond just calculations.
She saw the potential for creativity, for art, for things that we take for granted now, but were totally revolutionary back then.
Yeah, she really was a visionary.
Absolutely. But there's always more to the story, right?
Always. So we're talking about Ada Lovelace working in the 1800s. It's kind of hard to imagine, right? A woman in science back then?
It really makes you think about all the barriers she must have faced.
Not just barriers. Like, how did she even get the education to do all of this?
Well, women were pretty much excluded from formal scientific institutions. Their ideas, often ignored, dismissed.
Just because they were women?
Pretty much. It was a different world back then.
So even if she did brilliant work, would anyone even take her seriously?
That's a good question. Her work was published, it was out there, but it wasn't celebrated during her lifetime.
Why not? Was it just because she was a woman? Or was there something else?
Well, think about it. The analytical engine, the thing her work was all about, it was never actually built.
Oh, right. Babbage never got it finished.
Exactly. So it's like, how do you prove an idea works if the machine to test it doesn't exist?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Her ideas were almost too advanced for the time.
In a way, yeah. But even beyond the technical stuff, what's fascinating to me is how Ada thought about bigger questions. Like, creativity, intelligence.
Oh, yeah. She wasn't just writing code. She was thinking about what it all meant.
Yeah, right. Like, could machines ever really be creative? Could they actually think? This is way before AI, mind you.
So was she saying they could or that they couldn't?
Well, that's where the idea of the universal machine comes in.
Universal machine. What's that?
It's this idea that a machine could be programmed to do basically anything, as long as you could break it down into logical steps. But Ada didn't think that meant machines could actually think for themselves.
So they could follow instructions, but not come up with the ideas themselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's called the Lovelace objection. Machines can do what they're told, but they don't have that spark, that consciousness that drives human creativity.
It's like the debate we're still having today about AI, isn't it?
Right. Like, are we building tools or are we building something that could rival us? Ada was already thinking about these things way back then.
Pretty amazing. But okay, let's go back to Ada's life for a minute. We've talked about all the challenges being a woman in science back then. But did she have anyone in her corner, like mentors or supporters?
Oh, absolutely. Her mother, for one. Even though she was worried at first about Ada following her father's path, she did support her daughter's love for math.
It's funny, right? She tried to steer Ada away from Byron's influence, and she ends up pushing her into a field that was just as unconventional for a woman.
Ironic, isn't it? But Ada, she had this drive, this determination, and she had other mentors too, like Mary Somerville.
Who was that?
She was a science writer, a translator, really well respected. She became close to Ada, introduced her to Babbage, opened doors that might have been closed to her otherwise.
So it sounds like Ada had a real support system.
She did. It shows how important that can be, especially for someone trying to break new ground.
It's like talent needs the right environment to flourish.
Exactly. And Ada's story is a great example of that. But there's still more to uncover, her personal life, her struggles, her relationship with Babbage.
Right. There's always more to the story. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've covered a lot of ground with Ada Lovelace. Her work, her ideas, the time she lived in.
Really remarkable when you think about it.
Absolutely. But we haven't really talked about Ada, the person,
Right. It's easy to forget, with all her accomplishments, that she had a whole life outside of science.
And it wasn't always easy. I mean, she dealt with those health problems for years.
Yeah, the headaches, the paralysis, it must have been incredibly difficult.
It really makes you appreciate her resilience. Imagine trying to work on complex math problems while dealing with all that.
Exactly. It shows you how strong she was, mentally and emotionally.
Definitely. And then there's her relationship with Babbage. I mean, they had this amazing intellectual connection, but they were very different people.
Oh, yeah. Their personalities definitely clash sometimes.
So it wasn't always a smooth collaboration.
Not always. Babbage was very protective of his work. He could be, a bit difficult to work with.
And Ada, she was pretty independent, right?
Very much so. She wasn't afraid to challenge him, to offer her own interpretations.
I can see how that could lead to some tension.
Oh, there were definitely disagreements, especially when it came to publishing her work.
Really? What happened?
Well, Babbage wanted to have more control over what she wrote. He thought people wouldn't understand it properly without his input.
And Ada, she wasn't having it.
She pushed back. She believed in her own ideas and her own way of explaining things.
So what happened? Did they stop working together?
No, their bond was too strong for that. They kept writing letters, exchanging ideas, even when her health was declining.
It's pretty amazing. They had their differences, but they still respected each other's intellect.
Absolutely. And they both shared that passion for pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
It reminds you that even the greatest minds need to collaborate, to bounce ideas off each other.
Exactly. That's how innovation happens. It's a process, and it's not always easy. But when it works, it can be incredible.
So Ada Lovelace, she wasn't just a brilliant scientist. She was a complex person with flaws and struggles, just like all of us.
And her story, it's more than just a history lesson. It's an inspiration.
It's a reminder that we can achieve incredible things, even when faced with challenges.
Exactly. And that sometimes the most groundbreaking ideas come from the people who dare to think differently.
Ada Lovelace challenged the norms of her time. She pushed the boundaries of what was possible.
And she left behind a legacy that continues to inspire us today.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the extraordinary life and legacy of Ada Lovelace.